Sometimes I wonder if we understand Islam as it should be understood.
Sometimes it's hard to strengthen our faith amidst all these distractions.
Sometimes we're confused about what we want and what our next steps should be.
Sometimes you need to take a moment and reflect on what matters most.
And because we live in such uncertain times with so much going on around us, I guess sometimes we just gotta sit down and talk about it.
मेरा पैगाम न हो.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So I went on a road trip recently. I went to USA when Hazur Emre, may Allah be his helper, was on the USA tour. So I drove down to Philadelphia. And on this trip, I sort of realized how dependent I was on my GPS. I mean, if I didn't have any sort of data on my cell phone or any sort of GPS signal, I'd just be lost in some random city, right? But I mean, I also remember when we were kids and we would go on family road trips, our parents would have like the map set out and they would chalk out, with like a red marker, like the route that we would take. And just, I mean, how times have changed over the last 10, 15 years. And we become so accustomed to these things that, I mean, I literally can't drive anywhere without using my GPS anymore. That's probably a bad thing. But like technology has its pros and its cons. It has many benefits and it has harms as well. And Hazur Emre, may Allah be his helper, this year, Just Hassani UK 2018, in his address to ladies, he was speaking about some of the harms of technology and how, how detrimental some things have been within the families. It's broken homes apart. So what can we speak to, the benefits and harms of these technology and like these devices that we have?
Yeah, I think it's technology is like getting a new toy. Initially when you get it, you're so excited, and the kids, they spend so much time on it, and you forget about everything else. Even like parents, it's time to eat or sleep or doing your homework, and they don't want to do this. No, this is I'm going to play with this, and you don't realize. But with technology, the issue is that those kids, eventually they get tired of that toy, and then they get back to their routine. But with technology, the issue is that advancement is so rapid. Every day there's something new. For example, let's say if you're talking about YouTube, every day so much content is being added, so you become addicted to these things. So that, so to speak, excitement is always there. And as a result of that, and I think that's exactly what Hazur was talking about, and Hazur has mentioned it sometimes, that, for example, sometimes you're sitting on YouTube or, some other service, and you start watching, and that, okay, just 2 minutes, it turns into 10 minutes, and sometimes it turns into an hour. And same thing with like, social apps, where you're like, okay, let me just check, okay, what message did I get, right? And then you're checking, and before you know it, it's like, 20 minutes, half an hour has passed. So we need to realize, as you said, there's definitely benefits. I mean, the road trip you're mentioning, that it's a great benefit that people are able to save a lot of time, and you're able to travel, that distance with ease. So those benefits, the pros and cons, we need to weigh, and especially the parents, they need to be aware of both of those choices for themselves and especially for their children as well.
Right. I think I feel like how our parents were left behind with regards to technology and social media and all of this. And now it seems like as if now they're trying to make up for lost time. But I mean, prior to this, they don't know what social media is, whereas all of the youth are using Twitter, Instagram, and all of these things, and even WhatsApp and all these things. But a lot of the parents might not know what's capable with these social medias and what evil it can bring and what good it can bring through all these things. So I think it's very important for parents to be up to date with all these things and know what youth are getting themselves involved into.
I don't think, I actually think the parents are also up to date. The way it's going now, I see, a lot of, by parents, I mean, a lot of our elder uncles and everyone, they're all on social media. Right. And it starts, like you said, you start with one place and God knows where you end up. And hours have gone by, so a lot of time is wasted. But like you said, we need to understand what are the capabilities of the social media. I'll give you an example. When Instagram and all this stuff came out, I never really understood what it was. I was using it more to just back up some interesting pictures, or what I thought was interesting. It was for myself. Didn't even realize that the capacity of it is supposed to connect you to all these other people. So that's a very dangerous thing. Then when I thought about it, it's actually one of the most dangerous things, because that's going to be on there forever. So maybe, you know, when you're younger and you post something out of ignorance, but later on in the future, and this has already started happening, that it comes back to bite you in a way, right?
I mean, at the same time, you know, somebody might think, you know, if there's, you know, a young person just listening in, that they might think that this is some sort of religious sanction that we're trying to make, but it doesn't necessarily have to do with religion. That, you know, trying to be careful about what you post, what kind of pictures you post, what kind of things you tweet. I mean, there are a lot of random thoughts. Even big political leaders, sometimes we see, you know, they'll just be randomly typing away, and then they're held accountable to that by society. Right? We're just telling everybody to be careful about what they post, because like Hazur Amr, may Allah be his helper, has guided us, that, you know, there are a lot of people who have been hurt by these things, and this is just a reality that we have to accept, and we have to work around that, and then use all of these things to, you know, maximize the beneficial use of those things.
I think there's a flip side to this as well. You shouldn't only be looking at what you're posting, or be careful about what you're posting about yourself. Another aspect about this whole social media realm is, what are other people posting? How is that affecting you? You know, like recently on Instagram and other social media outlets, some of like these memes that got really famous, it's memes about exposing people from other accounts, where you'll have a 16-year-old standing at Home Depot or standing in Home Depot, and he's taking a photo of himself, and he's posing as if this is his own house that he bought at the age of 16 or 17, and he's showing a false success. Right? Now, initially, when you look at this meme, it seems like, okay, you got caught, you got booked, you're exposed, right? You laugh at it. The question is, how many people didn't get caught? How many people didn't get exposed, right? So now you have an impressionable 14, 15, 16-year-old person who's looking at all these things, looking at people's success, quote unquote, and now what they're doing is they're reviewing their own lives. And they're saying, I'm 16-year-old, there's another 16-year-old, this person's so successful, right? Or you have people who are 25 years old, 30 years old, and they're looking at someone who's 20, 21, 22. What people don't realize is that there's this huge movement even within the social media, within the social media realm, where people are actually using these things to market themselves. For example, they'll rent a mansion for a week, and they'll record multiple videos for that entire week, and they'll post it throughout the span of a year to make it look like they live there. Right. They have rented cars, right? Now,
it's just taking on a false persona, which
exactly.
is very easy to do. I mean, like there's actually something called Facebook depression, right? That like psychologists, when they're diagnosing depression, you know, they'll ask, you know, do you use social media? Because it does have an impact on you, because you begin naturally to compare your life to somebody else. And as we all know, we're always going to post some of our best moments or some achievements or something on social media. And then other people will compare their lives to it, and then they'll be like, oh, you know, what have we done, right? But I mean, even leaving social media aside, like there's other technological things that facilitate our lives as well. What can we comment on some of those things? Because social media can help facilitate a lot of things, and other technologies can help facilitate a lot of things, right?
I think, you know, as we were mentioning earlier, that definitely there's pros and cons. So for example, the pros are that through this social media or through certain messaging apps, let's say if you're collaborating on a certain project, you're able to work together, you're able to, you know, achieve a lot more. Similarly, for example, for us from a religious point of view, propagating the message of the promised Messiah Islam and the Holy Prophet, getting that true picture of Islam out there. You know, for example, when Hazur visits a country and when he makes a speech in a parliament at some mosque opening, for example, even the recent US tour. So the exposure is so big. So definitely there are, you know, the good that's the good side of social media and the advancement of technology. But at the same time, the reason we're trying to emphasize on the evils or negative aspects of it, because on a daily basis, on the average family, right now, if you look at all the research that is coming in, it's overwhelmingly showing that on a regular average family, the impact is negative. Because what is happening is that, for example, as soon as kids come home from school, what do they want? They want to grab a device, you know, tablet, iPad, or they want to sit down and watch TV, right? When they want to do some sort of homework, like, you know, for example, back in the days, I remember when I was a child growing up, you know, in Pakistan, in our school, we used to compete, times table. You know, we would make 2 lines, and it's like, okay, start with 1 times 1, and then keep going, and we would go until up to 20, right? Nowadays, it's impossible. You can't, right? Same thing, like for example, even if you look at telephone, back in the days, you would have so many phone numbers memorized.
Now, I mean, if anything, somebody would just use an app to try and teach a kid his multiplication tables,
Exactly.
right? Which is just getting him more addicted to it.
Addicted. And then at the same time, it's not letting your brain develop because you're relying so much on that. There's a joke that a couple were sitting and they were watching TV, and the husband, he had put his phone on charge in the kitchen. So then a ring vibrated, so he kind of ignored it. And then a few seconds again, it vibrated again, and he ignored it. They were like, okay, I wanna. And then when it happened 3-4 times, finally the uncle, he went there, and when he looked at the message, it was from his wife who was sitting beside me, and she said, please bring some salt on your way back. So I mean, end of the day, that's the light side of it. But that's what it's boiling down to. Many a time you have people in the same household. There's people sitting at the main floor and people on the top floor, and they're calling each other. Instead of just taking those 20 steps down or coming down. And some of us were probably also guilty of that. But
this actually reminds me of something that somebody tweeted out or something. It was on social media where I saw that like the power went out. Right, so the person wrote that, like the power went out, and I finally had to talk to my family members, and they seem like they're really cool people, because this was like the first time they were probably talking to me. But that's exactly what you were saying, that nobody's communicating with each other. I think one thing though, we were speaking in previous episodes about communication, right? Sometimes text messaging and using these kinds of things, they could help in certain situations as well. Like for example, we were speaking about if youth are not able to communicate with their parents, sometimes they're very shy. Sometimes we're very shy in vocalizing something, looking somebody in the eye and saying something. So we could text our parents and say, this is what I want to say, but I can't say it, so I'm just writing it out. Right? So in certain situations, this could be a good icebreaker to sort of open it up. But that's exactly what we have to sort of look at, that where can it be used to our benefit? Because obviously we don't encourage communication between spouses just through text messaging or something. Like we would want family members to speak to each other, right? But I guess that's what we need to look at, that there's benefits, there are harms, and we have enough intellect to know what's harmful and what's beneficial. I mean, it's not something that somebody has to sit down and tell you. I mean, most of it is self-evident.
The health benefit or the health aspect of it, I think that's a major thing. Just having a screen in your face at all times. The effect on your eyes, even the sleeping patterns. This is the confirmed studies that this definitely having a negative effect on our sleeping. We need to keep our phones away from our beds, right? And obesity. The kids are all sitting at home on the video games, on the PS4s, and they're just playing away. Where it used to be that mothers were calling the kids to come inside, now they're begging them to leave the house. Right.
I think another thing to add on to this as well is that we have to realize that, especially when you're raising a child or just growing up yourself, actually, you're using all like these different forms of social media, but we have to realize that there's an entire world right outside the door, right? And like it or not, you will have to make yourself into a functioning member of society, right? So if you're constantly inside on social media, or you come home and you're only on Instagram, you're only on Twitter, you're watching whatever you want to watch on TV and whatnot. You go to sleep, wake up, repeat, rinse and repeat, right? The question is, when you're forced to go outside into the real world, right? You go to apply for a job, you had an interview, you don't know how to communicate. You haven't developed those essential communication skills. So you actually what ends up happening is that you're lacking now. You can't express yourself. You're sitting there and you have social anxiety. Right? You're sitting there, your hands will be shaking sometimes, right?
What you just described, and I'm not sure that the confirmation how true this study is, but like the kids nowadays, they're having speech impairment. They did the tests on them and they understand everything. Like you can speak to them and they're understanding what you're saying, but they cannot express themselves because all they know is the screen, right? That give and take part of it isn't there. It's just the giving part, right?
And the crazy part is that, they're saying that a lot of these big, companies behind this, or the rich people who are controlling or developing these apps, they themselves have applied very strict restrictions on their own children as to the exposure time each day or at what age and all of that, right? So while they're, gaining a lot of wealth and, they're hoarding all of that wealth off of the average family, the average member of the society, they understand the harms of it. and they're keeping their own children away from this. It's like, for example, take alcohol. We as society, we understand all the harms, but still it's legal because there's a lot of money to be made. So it's the same thing with this. It's an addiction that and a lot of us, is just that because we, to a certain extent, we're not ready to accept that, we say that, no, I'm in control. But that only happens that, for example, if I remember a couple of months ago, I got my 2 daughters and my nephews and nieces to my house, invited them on the weekend. So I told them that today from the morning until night, is not going to be any devices, zero, no screen time at all, right? So they're like, okay, so what are we going to do for the whole day? So I was trying to explain to them that, when I grew up back in the days, we didn't have it.
How you have fun.
Yeah.
As a father, I have to teach you this.
So, but we would do one activity, and after 20 minutes, they're like, Abba, now we're bored, or like, Mamu, what do we do now, right? So, I mean, eventually we got through the day, but it was, it was very tough.
I think what happens at the same time is children mimic their parents, right? And all of us, I mean, like if somebody took my phone away, I would be devastated, right? Like I'm just gonna go out there and say it, right? Like because we need it, like we're always using it for one thing or another, work, leisure, whatever it may be, right? So I think us as elders and parents as well, is that children will just mimic what they see. So it's not only just us giving them devices, but even if we have it in our hands, the kids will say that we want it too, right? Like if it's actually proven, if you start reading books at home, like the mother and father get together and have a certain hour of the day where they just read books, this will translate over into the habits of the children, right? So these are the things that we need to do. I mean, like, for example, like table manners, right? Like a lot of people take their kids out to a random restaurant and they'll see that they're very rowdy, right? But they don't understand that you have to practice at home, right? So you have to practice all of these things at home so that, the children can develop these habits and then translate it later on.
It's interesting that Hazur, he's highlighted this point, and Hazur has mentioned that if you look at the life of the promised Messiah, that even though he was so busy, we still find incidents that where he was sitting down with his kids and he was having a meal, right? And Hazur has highlighted that again and again, that parents, they need to have that friendship with their children. And as you just mentioned that, how many of us are at home having at least, not 3, but at least 1 meal where the family is sitting down, no devices, and everybody's eating together.
Even, I mean, from the Holy Prophet ﷺ's time, right? Like we read our hadiths in which, the companions used to sit together and just talk and narrate stories. Very rarely does that happen, right? Like for us to come over here and start talking about this, it might happen every now and then, but it's not like a habit, right? And like we learn a lot from even the Holy Prophet ﷺ's time, right? That these are things that we should be doing. It's, it's just part of being human, speaking to other people that we're sort of beginning to miss out on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, socializing is a human phenomenon, right? This is something that human beings have been doing since the creation of human beings, socializing,
That's
right?
how we've progressed and advanced as...
Exactly. So, like, I mean, what some people would say is that this is the latest and greatest advancement of socializing, right? But it might be the latest, but the question is it the greatest? Because you're sitting at home and you have access to everything, not just something. You have access to every single thing. And you're not a grown man. You're not an adult. You're a 12-year-old. You have access to every single thing, right? And that leads to all these other social ills as well. I mean, I was reading a recent study that increased usage of social media actually leads people towards drug abuse, right? And the reason being is because there's so much propaganda out there, right? So, I mean, as an adult, you need to make sure that if you have a younger sibling or children and whatnot, you need to make sure that what they're looking at on their phones, it's controlled, right? It's controlled content, right?
But I think that's the other problem with it, that I would say it's near, impossible to control that. Because nowadays there are so many services, like you have VPN and you have whatnot, that I would say it's near impossible for any parent to say that, okay, the experience I'm going to give my child is going to be contained, is going to be controlled. The only way, in my opinion, it can be controlled is that if they don't have the device. Otherwise,
the only way is to actually like go somewhere without electricity. That's the only way. I'll give you an example.
To a certain extent, right?
But that's something very important that we would probably discuss. A lot of people would be interested. I mean, like this could be an entire separate debate at what age somebody should be allowed to use cell phones and whatnot. I mean, personally speaking, I had a shared cell phone amongst my siblings when I was in grade 10 and my oldest sister was in grade 12, right? So that's the sort of age at which we were allowed to have phones. Although it was a flip phone at that time, it wasn't like a smartphone on which you can just do everything nowadays, right? It was mainly just to text and make phone calls, right? To just communicate, which is less of what we're doing and more of like just taking in a lot of information. But what do you guys have to say with regards to that? I mean, like I said before, it can be debated whether or not, teens should have cell phones. And it's very...
This is you trying to get us in trouble.
Yeah, like it's very sensitive. So like somebody who's watching will be like, Manan Bhai doesn't want us to have cell phones,
It's interesting you mentioned this because now, again, there's this new, movement, if you want to call it, that they're going back to that. A lot of these successful people, and they're business people, they're going back to the flip phone because of the distractions. And the way they do it is like, for example, even if you YouTube, there are certain channels that show documentaries. And again, we're saying use social media to, but it's the irony. Yeah. And they're showing that, the way they design the graphic, the user interface, it's made so that, you become addictive. Right. And it's so appealing and it's so colorful. And especially like you'll see that, for example, the colors blue, red, and green. And you'll see that a lot of the major, for example, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Google, they have these very similar colors because these colors are so appealing to the eye.
But I mean, at the same time, when somebody makes a website, there's something called search engine optimization, right? And one of the aspects of this is how do you keep somebody on your website for longer? Exactly. Right? So people are doing research with regards to this, and they're making algorithms so that you stay on a website longer. Right. That's exactly what YouTube is doing. That's exactly what Twitter, Instagram, all these different social medias are doing. They're trying to keep us longer. And then what happens, like you were speaking about this earlier, that, sleeping patterns, right? But now you'll see that there are apps that sort of try to help with that, right? Yeah. So like the technology will be the culprit for that, but then it'll say, no, but if you install this one app, it'll make it like a yellow haze, and that will help reset your sleeping pattern. So don't worry, it's fine. You can use your phone as much as you want, right? It's just a lot of band-aid solutions everywhere.
But going back to your question, I think Sobisa perhaps can give us the answer.
The answer is to get out electricity, because I was going to give the example, after we're finished Jamia, Azure Anwar Eid al-Aziz, he's instructed the missionaries to go to certain other countries. So I had that chance of going to Ghana, for example, and I was in this village for about 2 months, no electricity and anything. And I noticed that in those 2 months, everything in my life, it was in a perfect routine. I mean, I woke up with the sun. I went to sleep with the sun because you don't have anything else to do really, and everything like falls into place. You wake up extra early for Tahajjud.
That's very interesting because I went to Africa as well. I went to Benin, and even the most remotest villages I went to, they had data and they had cellular there, right? So I was able to connect to the internet even in those villages where we would have to take a vehicle up to a certain point beyond which a vehicle couldn't go. Then we would have to take like the motorcycle of the local missionary, and then to a place where even the motorcycle couldn't go, so we had to walk through water to get to that village, and the internet was working. And I'm just like, how does this work? Right? So I mean, both things, but you're right. At the same time, I was happy.
How are you going to charge your phone though? Right? So you have a limitation on it.
Yeah, definitely. Right? So I mean, it goes both ways. I mean, we just need to learn, and I guess it would be a more personal thing. Maybe parents could be, or the adults or the guardians of the children could be the ones who dictate, at what age, because they know their children best. They know what best to do with any type of situation. There's no blanket age that we can set that, before 16, no technology whatsoever. I mean, it's going to change, right? But I guess we all need to evaluate that, what benefit has it caused us and what harm has it caused us in the past or other people. Because I mean, life is too short to just make all the mistakes by yourself. It's just a matter of, having that intellect or having that personal thing that, I know I'm going to use it for good. And if something happens, then, I've learned my lesson, or I'm going to try my best to avoid the harms that I know are associated with it. And I mean, for youth nowadays, like I said before, everything is self-evident. Right? Like you don't need to sit.
One thing we could all agree on, hopefully, is that the parents have a responsibility, and the kids are watching them. Like I have a niece, and any chance she gets, like we're talking on the phone with her, through Skype or whatever. I can tell she's looking at us, but now she's fidgeting. She's doing other stuff at the same time. She's only 2, and she's capable to do all that. I couldn't ever even imagine something like that. So the kids are watching the parents. The parents need to spend the time with their kids, spend the time, socialize with the kids, and so that at least they have some kind of a good backing that this is some moral training, some tarbiyah towards a positive direction. Otherwise, if you put it in their hands just to get them to quiet, and I've seen that happen, that's just like you said, a band-aid solution for everything, and it's gonna be very detrimental.
But I think the point you're mentioning, I think to add to that, Hazrat Masih Rabi Rahimahullah Ta'ala, he actually once mentioned, he said that it's very difficult when kids are doing certain things to tell them that, okay, don't do this. Instead, he says that you need to introduce activities, something new, and then hope and work with them so that that activity will overtake the bad activity. So that's exactly what you're saying, that, the parents, and especially the older siblings who understand the harms of technology, they need to understand that these things, the harm is definitely greater. All the research that is coming in is, with the social media and all of that. So the family has to spend time together. When you're at home, there should be limits that, for example, let's say, okay, at least let's have, dinner together. Or if we're going to watch something on YouTube, as Hazur has been saying again and again, okay, at least watch something from MTA as well, because all the content from MTA is on YouTube as well, right?
So, I mean, just to sort of wrap it up, I mean, with regards to technology, something that we forgot to mention, something that we must understand is that technology was also, created for the advancement of the message of the Promised Messiah, ﷺ. So if we always keep this thing in mind, keeping our end goal in mind, it will sort of make our usage more applicable to that end goal, right? So there's a lot of great benefits and some harms to technology. It's just a matter of evaluating and seeing where it's going to serve us and where it's going to go against us. Some great points were made today. Jazakallah for joining us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Nonehalane jamaat मुझे कुछ कहना है पर है ये शर्त के ज़ाए मेरा पैगाम